This recording is from the ACA World Convention that was held virtually in April of 2020. The WSO is grateful to all of those that provided service and that attended. ACA is an anonymous program. Please respect the anonymity of those that participated in the event. You can visit us online at adultchildren.org, where we have pages dedicated to newcomers and a free literature downloads page. Our service websites, acawso.org and acawsoec.org, have information about being of service, and literature and medallions are available for purchase, and the Seventh Tradition contributions can be made at shop.adultchildren.org. Please enjoy the following recording from the 2020 ABC, Global Connections Strengthen Our Recovery.
That up on the screen when I ask him to. And then the main one we're going to go over are these nice little laminated double-sided cards that I made out. There's 200 of them here that we're going to be in Florida. And when we get to that point, please don't feel like you have to scribble everything down. If you want copies of these, contact me on Slack or through highchair at adultchildren.org, highchair at adultchildren.org. So anyway, showing up. Congratulations to everybody who's just showed up tonight. You know, back in Strengthening My Recovery a couple days ago, it was talking about, you know, how important it is to just show up. And, you know, I have done all sorts of stuff wrong in recovery, but the one thing I have consistently done correct is I have shown up. And the more I do that, the more I learn and the more I grow. And, you know, tonight it's a 90-minute workshop. I'm going to be going over some stuff that may sound complicated. Everything's complicated, right? When we first start learning how to do it, and eventually it gets easier and easier. So if in this 90 minutes, only 3 minutes makes sense, that's okay. Because the way my recovery has worked and what I believe happens is 3 minutes add up, and you go to another workshop and those 3 minutes add up. Pretty soon all those 3 minutes have added up, and it's the puzzle, the pieces of the puzzle come together. And for me, it was like, that's what they're talking about. I finally kind of understood what I'd been wanting to understand for so long. And, you know, when I think within my first year of recovery, I had a conversation with my sponsor, and you know, back then I was really impatient. I said, Doug, I want 10 years right now. And he kind of laughed at me, which I found annoying. And he said, Rich, you'll get 10 years just like all of us get 10 years, one day at a time, you know. And there's really a lot of truth to that, even though that's not what I wanted to hear. But it really is one day at a time, 3 minutes at a time, you know, and it all comes together. So what are why healthy communications? It is how I share who I am to, getting text. It's how I share who I am to other people. I share to be known, you know, intimacy, into me, you see, intimacy. And it is literally sharing so I am known by other people. You share so I get to know you. That's not what I learned in my family. In my family, it very much was about I would share to control and manipulate others so that I could get what I wanted or what I thought I needed. And hopefully, you know, we're learning how to outgrow that. So I share to be known. Something I want to throw out there real quick. One of my communication defects of character still is my thoughts go much quicker than my mouth does. And sometimes I throw too many thoughts out there. And if it does not make sense, please send me a chat or I'm sorry, you can't do that. Please put your hand up. And if Jim would let me know, I don't view that as an interruption. I view that as somebody trying to get clarity, okay? And the way I look at this is, you know, if I have a statement that is 400 words long and after 50 words you're confused, where are you going to be after 400 words? So I really believe in clarification. For me, it's not interruption. Some people would differ with that, but I don't feel it is. Anyway, now on to, I am definitely an adult child. I grew up in a crazy dysfunctional family. Most of my stories from my family are going to be about communication, flawed communication, except for this first one. And I'm throwing this one out there. I think you will get the relevance of the world situation. But so I had two alcoholic parents. My dad was always a drinker, and he was usually a pretty quiet pass out drinker. I thank God my mom didn't start drinking until I was 12, and she was the just raging codependent, and she did everything she could possibly do to get my dad to stop drinking. Of course, none of it worked, and she was creative. I mean, amazing stuff that she would try to do. Of course, none of it worked. And I believe what happened as her pain built in her codependency, that she could not stop my dad's drinking, which by then was getting pretty destructive. She started drinking to sedate her own pain. Now, when my mom drank, she was a true Jekyll and Hyde. She was kind and sweet and kind of loving when she was not drinking, and just aggressive, abusive, and adversarial when she was drinking. So one of the things my mom decided to do in order to save money, because they were going through 5 or 6 of those big half-gallon jugs of, my dad drank gin, my mom drank vodka, a lot of booze. And so she decided, in order to save money, that we would stop buying toilet paper. So in our house for a couple years, in both bathrooms, we had 2 buckets. One bucket had cut up rags and sheets, and the other bucket had water and Clorox. And the idea was, when you had a bowel movement, you would wipe yourself and throw that rag in the bucket of water and Clorox, and it would disinfect it. Okay, so I kind of got that. It sort of made sense. But then I started seeing the same rags turn up, and I found out that my mom just re-washed those rags, and that absolutely freaked me out. So I'd been working since I was 9 or 10. So I started buying my own toilet paper, and, you know, learning the laundry list traits from an early age, the 4 flawed modes of thinking in chapter 2. You know, I was into black and white thinking. And so, not then, I am now, or what, to some degree I am now. Early recovery, very much so. Since I did not have toilet paper when I was a kid, in my black and white thinking, I went to the other extreme. And when I was adult and had money, I had 2 closetfuls of toilet paper. I was never going to run out of toilet paper again. And, you know, I can, again, progress for me. Today I've got, you know, 8, maybe 10 rolls of toilet paper. I don't have closetfuls of toilet paper. And, you know, and so you see the relevance of the world situation right now. But that was some of the insanity that was going on in my family. Okay, now down to communication. The way my family communicated, my mom was a talker. She would talk on and on and on. And she would use so many words that I often could not figure out what she was saying. My dad was like, he was baffled almost all the time when my mom was talking. So my mom talks and talks and talks and talks. My dad grunts. I mean, sometimes he would literally grunt a response. And the more my mom talked, the quieter my dad grunted, and the more he would just go to passive aggressive, cold shoulder, just no response at all. So 2 very dysfunctional communication styles, you know, in my opinion, very much at the black and white spectrum. Talk on and on and on so much that you can't really figure out what their point is, which is dysfunctional. And the other side was you grunt a response. As a kid, I was stuck in the middle trying to figure out what they were talking about. And I got fairly good at it to some degree. But where that left me was really believing as a kid that it was my responsibility to figure out what they were saying. And, you know, that's a pretty innocent childhood reaction, I believe. But I think it's a very poor belief system. It's not true. What I believe now is it is my responsibility to speak so that you can understand me. It's not your responsibility to figure out what I'm saying. And of course, to some degree it is. You got to listen and, you know, pay attention. But if I am using so many words that you can't figure out my point, or if I'm grunting, that is not your responsibility to figure out what I'm saying. So here I'm a kid trying to figure out how to communicate. And of course, I'm going to do either one of the other of what my mom did. So I'm a guy, you guys can probably figure out which way I went. I turned into a grunter also. I am 100% convinced that they both thought that they communicated very well. And I say that for a reason. I used to think that I communicated very well. And I've got a story about that here in just a second I'm going to go to. So when I was a kid, learned all the stuff that I think most of us learn in dysfunctional family: don't talk, don't trust, don't feel. You know, the laundry list traits, I had adopted them somewhere along the line. I definitely learned the 4 flawed modes of thinking, which is in chapter 2. You know, the chapter that says it'll never happen to me, which, by the way, is one of my favorite chapters, because before I really understood those 4 flawed modes of thinking, control, judgment, black and white, perfectionism, before I really understood how I was doing those in most of my thought process, my recovery really kind of just was stagnant. And when I started to see how often I reverted to those 4 flawed modes of thinking and the laundry list traits, and my belief is the laundry list traits come out of all the 4 flawed modes of thinking, I was stuck with flawed communication skills. So I developed pretty intense shame, which I think a lot of us do in dysfunctional families. And I believe shame can go one of 2 directions, all right? Either the less than position of shame, where I feel hopeless, helpless, I'm in pain. When I'm in the less than position of shame, it hurts, it's painful. I am aware of that. The other place in shame is the grandiose place of shame, which is where I actually tend to go most of the time, certainly went to when I was before recovery. And so, and why do people go to grandiose places of shame? Well, first, what does it look like? I'm better than others. I talk better than others. I just pretty much do everything a little bit better, and I'm entitled. People with grandiosity, incredible addictions are going on with them. So anyway, in my grandiose place of shame, I'm going to zip back to trait 1, laundry list, fear of authority figure. I was definitely afraid of authority figures. I had been told so many times that you didn't do it right, be quiet, go away. You know, I really thought that I was flawed somehow. So in my grandiose place in shame and in my fear of authority figure, if we're, what's the book say? We either fear authority figures or we become an authority figure. So, I'm getting chats and I'm having a hard time focusing on both. So I think I'll just not focus on chats. I went to the becoming authority figure. And I thought, well, what's a great way to be an authority figure? I'll be a doctor. So I actually somehow got into med school. Started my first year of med school in 1982, got sober. And when I got sober, I was working with a great therapist, and he said, Rich, you've got so many ACA issues that if you don't address your ACA issues, you won't stay sober. So I really consider my AA birthday, my sobriety birthday, and my ACA birthday as the same. And that's April 19th of 1986. So anyway, got sober in 86. In my first year of med school, we had a professor that came in and spoke to us about a study that had just been done at Harvard Medical School. And I think by anybody's book, Harvard is a pretty good med school. And this study showed that 86% of the incoming class thought they were frauds. And when I heard that, I was just astounded, because I absolutely knew I was a fraud. And hearing that 86% of the class of Harvard thought they were frauds really helped me kind of settle in that, okay, we all feel like frauds and I can do this. So why am I bringing this up? How many out there feel like frauds? I still feel like a fraud sometimes. Sometimes it's just like, when my critical parent is really going on, it's like, and I'm listening to it, I can still drop into that place of shame where it's like, they're going to find out about me and, I'm out of here. So anyway, by 1988, I was back in Albuquerque, and I was starting a medical practice. And here in New Mexico, we had the monitor treatment program, which you had weekly urine tests. You went to a weekly group therapy group with the same therapist, and then an individual weekly therapy session. So in my weekly individual therapy session, the therapist, Dave, he started working with me in subtle ways on communication. And how it looked was, I would get off work and come in to see him, and he would say, Rich, tell me about your day. And I'd say, And he'd look at me and shake his head and say, no, Rich, I don't know. How was your day? And I'd say, well, it was busy. And he'd shake his head again and go, Rich, tell me about your day. I thought the man was absolutely insane. It's like, what do you not understand about says it all. And I was baffled that he didn't know what it was a busy day meant. And over a course of a couple weeks, and I'm sure my anxiety level had settled to some degree, he started going over, no, Rich, when I want to know about your day, I don't know what it's like to be a doctor. I don't know what it's like to have a medical practice. I don't know what it's like to work with your staff, what it's like to go to the hospital. All these things that I don't know about your day, those are things that you could talk about when I ask you how your day is going. That was a revelation to me. That had never happened in my family. My mom would ask how was school, and I'd grunt and walk off, because that's what I learned. That's what my dad did. And I'm sure it was very painful for my mom, but that's what I learned how to do. So anyway, 1988, I started to actually learn how to communicate. I'm definitely a work in progress still. Any of my friends or even board members could tell you that, sometimes I just don't communicate well, and that's okay. I'm learning how to do this like everyone else is, but it is kind of a passion of mine. I think it's really important. So now I'm going to move on to some concepts of healthy communication. All right. So at any point in time in any relationship, I'm going to adjust my camera a little bit. I can't see my hands. I'm a hand speaker. In any relationship, at any point in time, we're in one of three areas. We're either in harmony, we're in disharmony, or we're in the repair process. Now, everybody hopefully knows what harmony in a relationship looks like. I'm sure all of us being ACAs know what disharmony looks like in a relationship. Unfortunately, very few of us know about what the repair process looks like. So the repair process are these tools, some of the tools we're going to talk about tonight, that when I'm in a relationship and I drift out of harmony into disharmony, the repair process is what gets me back to harmony, okay? So kind of a good thing to know how to do, all right? And I'm giving you all these concepts, and hopefully I tie them together enough that it makes sense. So this next one is a fairly old psychological instrument, and it's called the Johari window. It's got a weird spelling, Johari window, if anyone wants to look it up. So what it is, it's a window pane, okay? So imagine a square window pane. It's got a cross in it, so there's 4 panes, all right? In the first pane, and this happens not only with me, it's with all of us, right? It's a psychological instrument, so it happens with everybody. So in that first pane of glass, it's what I know about me and what you know about me. So you can see the color of my shirt, and you see how tall I am and the tone of my voice, and I know those same things. So it's what you know about me and what I know about me. The second pane are the things that I know about me, but you don't know about me, and you never will. That third pane is the things that you know about me, but I don't know about me. And that's the important part, at least for this conversation, that there's things that you see about me that I don't know about me. That fourth pane is the unknown. I don't know it, you don't know it, it's in the future, it's unknown. So that third pane, the parts that you see about me, but I don't know yet about me, is really important if I'm going to grow in my recovery, and if we're in a relationship, we will stay stable in the relationship. So a story on that one is I was married 30 some years ago, and actually it was longer than that. I was still using, still drinking. So every Christmas, I would send my mother and my grandmother in South Dakota an old VHS tape, and we just talk about what was going on in our lives. And this Christmas, we'd moved into a new house, and we were going around showing everything that was in the house. And my flawed thinking was telling me that this is my tape. This is to my grandmother, my mother. But my wife was following me around, and after I would say something, she would chime in. We went through the whole house. For whatever reason, I looked at that tape before I sent it, and I was absolutely horrified. Never sent it. We made a new tape. My tone of voice towards my wife was just awful. It was, you know, she would say something and I'd say something sarcastic or demeaning. It was just awful. I was embarrassed. I was not aware that I was doing that. I'm sure she was in that third pane. She saw I was doing it. I was totally unaware of it. Okay. So eventually talked to my therapist, and, and we talked about co-opting my recovery. I've heard actually Jim talk about it as a spiritual license that we can give other people in our recovery to help us. So I gave that to my wife. We eventually got divorced. But in other relationships since, I've used that same co-opting or spiritual license, where I would say, you know what, I'm really aware that sometimes I get this tone of voice that I used to be oblivious to. Now, sometimes if I'm in touch with my feelings, I'm aware of it. Sometimes I'm on autopilot and I'm not aware of my tone of voice. You could help me in my recovery by pointing it out. And it also helps the relationship, because if I've got a nasty tone of voice and you don't feel like you can point it out to me, you're going to start to build resentments. All right. And we're going to get into that in some of these flawed communication styles. So anyway, I actually am a big believer in that. Some people might disagree. I'm a big believer in co-opting spiritual license other people to help me when I don't see what I'm doing in recovery. And really the only people I give that to on a regular basis are my therapist, my sponsor, and then if I'm in a close romantic relationship, right? Okay, a few really common flawed communication styles. Oops, I missed something. And this is a huge thing where a lot of flawed communication styles come from. And that is that we all have different perceptions because of the way we were raised, because of our dysfunctional upbringings. We can watch the same thing and come away with a completely different interpretation or perception of what happened. And the example that I like to use is a door slam. So say in your family, when dad came home, he slammed the door, and that was to let all the kids know that daddy's home and there were hugs and toys for everybody. In my family, dad came home, slammed the door because he was drunk, and you better run for cover. Now, when we're adults, you're going to perceive a door slam completely different than I perceive a door slam. And this used to baffle me when I was married. My wife and I would see the same event, and we would come away with these totally different perceptions. I just couldn't understand it. How can you think that happened when I think this happened? Well, now I know that it was about, just like a door slam. She thought it was hugs and toys, and I'm thinking it's going to be an ass whipping, So we can experience the same event, and people can have different perceptions. And if we're not aware of that in communications, what I tend to do is get into judge and, trying to control the outcome somehow. Okay, now I'm going to get to some flawed communication styles. One of my favorite is whack 'em and sack 'em. And this is what our red book talks about stuffing our feelings. So whack 'em and sack 'em, the idea is that we all carry this canvas bag on our back, and every time you or life does something that I have a feeling that I'm unaware of or not going to acknowledge, I stuff it in the sack. Every time you say something, I get a resentment, I stuff it in the sack. Every time life throws me a curveball that I don't deal with in a healthy way, I stuff it in the sack. Over time, the sack gets so heavy that one last thing happens, and God bless you if you're the person in front of me when it does. The sack is so heavy that I haul it off and I whack you upside the head with it. And 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years of bad news is dumped on you. You did this. And it's a really common flawed communication style. It happens a lot at work because people in a lot of work environments don't feel like, well, I can't tell the boss what I'm really feeling, or, and I don't believe that, but I know that's true in some work environments. And I'm sure you get the connection about stuffing our feelings, right? We stuff it, we stuff it, we stuff it, and pretty soon it's so heavy that you just can't carry it anymore, and you have a tolerance break. And what your behavior is going to do, what your behavior is going to be during a tolerance break is anybody's guess. Mine was drinking and drugging most of the time. Next one is triangulation. So this is what I did with my mom and dad, right? Triangulation. So here's mom, here's dad, here's little Rich. And mom is going on and on and on. Dad is grunting. Mom doesn't understand dad. Dad doesn't understand mom. And as an innocent kid, I start, sending the messages back and forth. Now, as a kid, it felt perfectly normal. As an adult, it's amazingly dangerous because, so if, say, Fred wants to talk to Sally, but is little and wants me to give the message to Sally. And if I'm willing to do that, now Sally's got a message back to Fred. So two things are going to happen. The person doing the relaying, me, usually ends up in a very bad, unfortunate situation where both people can be pissed off at you. The other thing is you're really enabling the two people who should be talking to each other to not talk to each other. So when now as an adult, hopefully a healthier adult, when somebody says, hey, will you tell what's his name about, I'll say, I won't. I think that's your responsibility. You need to talk to them about that. So I don't allow triangulation anymore in my life generally. Again, it's a big one. Objectivity battles. This is another one of my favorites. So what's an objectivity battle? So remember what I was saying about we all have different perceptions based on our own history. So because of my history, I have the perception or the objectivity that when the door slams, it means dad's drunk and it's going to be ass kicking time. You have the perception that no, a door slam, it means there's going to be hugs and toys. So if you and I get into a relationship and we experience a door slam or some, and this is a silly example, but you can make up your own. I know all of you have had this happen. We get into this objectivity battle of I'm trying to convince you that my perception's right. You're trying to convince me that your perception's right. And we go back and forth and back and forth. And what usually happens for me anyway is something will happen, say the door slams, and we get into this objectivity battle. But because I'm really, what I'm not sharing to be known, I'm sharing to control or manipulate you. No, my belief is correct. When the door slams, it means look out. No, so we get into this battle. So an event will occur. We start battling back and forth. I raise my voice, you raise your voice, and 86 triggers down the road. You do one thing, I react, you get triggered, I get triggered. 86 triggers down the road, and it's been a really uncomfortable situation for both of us, but neither one of us can clearly remember what happened. It just feels like, however long this process went on, that it was bad news, right? Nobody can figure it out. So I think, and the 4 3-part statements we're going to talk about are really beneficial to avoid those things, okay? And I try to really be aware that when I'm starting an objectivity battle, before it gets very far, to just stop and go, I'm sorry, what I'm doing right now is really non-productive, and what I would like to do is give you a 3 or 4-part statement. Now, this other one doesn't happen much in adults, although it can. My wife actually did it, but kids do this all the time, and I love the title of it. It's called affectionate lurking, affectionate lurking. And what does that look like? Like I said, kids do it. I used to do this all the time. My mom would be in the kitchen and I'd walk in and go, Mom, what you doing? Oh, I'm making dinner. Why? Well, because we got to eat. Why? Well, dad's coming, we're going to, why? I was one of those kids that could say why for anything and for an indeterminate amount of time. It would go on forever. And my mom would kind of tolerate that. My dad was totally intolerant to it. Be quiet, go away, very rigid with interacting with little kids. So why did I come into my mom when she was in the kitchen and go, Mom, what you doing? And then why? Well, the first thing is, as a little kid, my brain isn't fully developed. The only thing I operate on as especially a tiny kid is a feeling reality. I don't have these intellectual concepts. I don't have language skills. I don't have those abilities to actually say, Mom, I love you, and I just wanted to hang out and see what's happening. I can't say that. Instead, it's I hang out, and why? Why are you doing that? And could go on and on and on. Now, that's affectionate lurking. And why am I saying that now? If as adults, we don't recognize when not only my inner child is affectionate lurking, but when a real physical child is affectionate lurking, we're probably going to react in a abusive or certainly less than nurturing way. So I think it's a really big one for us adults to know that, if a kid comes up and he's just like hanging with you, he's trying to say he loves you. He's just trying to, he doesn't have the skills to really communicate with you, but he's showing by his behavior that he just wants to be with you. Jim, can you throw up the 3 entities of self one? Jim? Thank you. Thank you, Jim. So now, Jim, they're just able to see, yeah, they're just able to see the screen that you put up. So I'm going to read through this fairly quickly. Again, please don't think you have to scribble everything down. I've got copies of this. I will gladly send you one. I don't know, I will gladly send you one or 2 or 3. So the title of this is 3 entities of self, okay? And the other part of it, who's driving your bus, is a nod towards Bob Subby. Some people are saying it's too small. Who is the guy that I first saw this described with. I saw him at a conference in San Diego in 1989, and he had this up on a chalkboard. And, you know, I was only, what, 3 years sober at that point. But this made so much sense to me on so many levels. And for the last 34 years of recovery, I've been growing into this. So the 3 entities of self. So as you can see, there's the inner child, the critical parent, the healthy adult. All right. Now, those are the terms that we use in ACA. Underneath that is Freud's terms, the id, the ego, the superego. Now, Freud came up with very, very different interpretations than what I believe these 3 entities are about, but that's not the point. I think the point is that many, many societies have thought or believe that we seem to have these 3 entities in our spirit at any, that are operating all the time. Okay. Somebody came up once and said she knew the Greeks had terms for this, and she threw out the names, but I can't remember them. I wish I would have written them down. So over to the inner child, the characteristics of my inner child. And again, some people are going to disagree with this. That's fine. You know, going through the other lectures this morning, it's interesting to me how I think we're all saying the same thing. How to nurture our inner child, how to quiet that critical parent voice down, and how to develop that healthy adult or loving parent. I think that's what we're all saying, but we've all got a little different way that it might work for us. So that's all this is a way that worked for Bob S. It's worked very well for me. It seems to work for others that I sponsor. So the characteristics of the inner child are, my inner child has my feelings. It is the carrier of my feeling reality. And, you know, I'm not always going to understand why I feel the way I do. And it's actually a little abusive, I think, in me always asking, you know, why do you feel that way? You know, that's what my parents would do. Why do you feel like that? You know, and it's kind of invalidating just to hear that. Why? So now when I have a feeling that comes up, I really try not to ask why. And when I am asking why, I know it's my critical parent that's in charge. And I try to then quiet that voice down and tell my little kid that, hey, it's okay to feel any way you want to feel. And I don't have to know why. You don't have to figure this out. That's my responsibility. Kid also has creative ideas. Kid has confused thoughts and fantasies. Kids will lie. Kids are open to higher power. I truly believe that the book says that God speaks to my inner child. This is absolutely the way I was born. It's my true self, my authentic self. And probably the most important part is my inner child is perfectly imperfect. Why am I imperfect? Well, because I'm a human, right? I'm never going to reach that place of perfectionism that my family wanted me to be. It's not going to happen. But is my little kid perfect? My little kid is perfectly imperfect. Nothing wrong with my little kid. And I used to think that it was my little kid I was taking to meetings, that it was the little kid I had to change. And now I know that's really not true. My kid is perfect just the way he is. And I still hear people blaming the inner child for their hypervigilance or their control issues, and my opinion, that's absolutely not true. Okay. My little kid carries my feelings. And now jumping over to the critical parent there in the middle, you know, the critical parent is the reaction from my family not, you know, allowing my little kid to have feelings. So going down the categories there on the critical parent, my critical parent is the internalized parts of my parents, family, teachers, church, society. Like our red book says, it is the authority figures in my spirit. My critical parent is incredibly judgmental. Why do you feel like that? My critical parent is shaming. Don't feel that way. It is the critical voice in our head. It is the false self. My critical parent operates out of the 14 laundry list traits and the 4 flawed modes of thinking in chapter 2. And again, control, judgment, black and white, and perfectionism. My critical parent is the reactor as opposed to the actor that we talk about in ACA. My critical parent operates from a place of personality. My critical parent thinks he's pretty clever and cute, you know, and he's not. It's just all personality. Now, the bottom part there, the worker bee, and the reason it's asterisked is that's really important. All of those things above worker bee are the detrimental parts of my critical parent. Those are the things that I'm really trying to minimize and quiet down about my critical parent. But I can't get rid of my critical parent because he is my worker bee. He gets me dressed in the mornings. He drives me to work. He does all those day in and day out things that keep my life going. So I can't get rid of any of these people. And I'm going to quickly talk about that here in a sec. Over the last one, the healthy adult is
in the... Rich, you had a question about the BBF. What does that stand for?
Okay, thank you for asking. The BBF, that's one of Pia M's deals, and the BBF stands for big bony finger. You did this, you did that. It's that shaming part of the critical parent. Okay, thanks. The healthy adult, and thanks for watching that, Jim, because I've stopped looking. The healthy adult is the person that is in recovery, that is teachable, that is responsible. These next 2 are asterisks because in my experience, these are 2 of the most important things that I can do as a healthy adult. And understand healthy adult / loving parent, same exact entity, okay? Different name for the same entity. So whether you call it healthy adult or loving parent or healthy adult loving parent, doesn't matter. It's the same entity, okay? So my healthy adult or loving parent accepts the feelings of the inner child. Doesn't try to figure them out, just accepts them. I hear you're sad. I hear you're happy. Just tries to acknowledge them. The third one down there stands up and confronts that critical parent voice when it's judging or shaming my little kid. Because what would happen to me is my little kid would have an emotion and immediately that critical parent would be, what are you feeling that way for? That you should not be feeling that way. I'll give you something to, you know, all that stuff. And my healthy adult now can quiet that voice down, you know, and sometimes it's not so quiet. Sometimes it's shut the freak up. I'm not listening to you today. You know, I don't need your opinion. As kind of a sidebar, it really helped me to identify those voices. I eventually got to the point where I could say, okay, that's mom, there's dad, there's my sister, you know, so it really helped to identify the voice and go, Dad, don't need your input today, go away. Thank you very much. And sometimes I had to get a little angry and energetic for that to actually occur. Fourth bullet point down is the healthy adult is the actor, right? Some new agey terms. I believe the healthy adult entity is my witness, my observer state, operates from principles, right? As opposed to the critical parent that operates out of personality. Being a healthy adult or loving parent really is a mindfulness practice. It's being aware that at any point in my life, at any point in time in my life, one of these 3 entities is predominantly in control of myself. And if I'm not really aware of who it is, I might be, you know, reacting from an inner child place where I'm just having a temper tantrum and look out, or my critical parent is blaming you for whatever he thinks you did, and again, look out, as opposed to the healthy adult recognizing that, oh, okay, that's just my critical parent who's on a rampage, and I really can quiet that voice down. Or my inner child is feeling really lonely and I need to show up. I recognize that you're lonely and I'm here for you now. You know, it's not like it was when we were kids or when you were a kid. I can show up for you now. Okay. Now, the very last bullet point, hopefully everyone recognizes that one. When we release our parents from responsibility for our actions today, we become free to make helpful decisions as actors, not reactors. So why I added that here, that statement to me is about that healthy adult recognizing that I can make a choice to quiet down that critical parent, because the critical parent are my real parents in my spirit, right? So I can quiet those people down. I can remove them from my actions today, and then I can become free to make a healthful decision as an actor, or in other words, a healthful decision as a healthy adult or a loving parent, instead of just being stuck in critical parent reactive mode, right? Jim, can you take that down now, please?
Well, you have a question? You want to take
Okay,
a question from Carrie?
From Carrie.
Yeah, Carrie, you're able to speak. If you still want to say something, you have to unmute your microphone. If not, we'll go to Faith also here. Faith.
Wait, are you talking to me?
Yes, Carrie C. You had your hand raised.
Oh my God! But that was like at 2 o'clock. But well, thank you. I'm really I'm really finding it super helpful. Like I can see so many like parts of like my inner child crossed with the critical thinking parent, and the way you guys are describing it, and more like on an innocent level. It's like I can feel like I'm following it and comprehending it. So I'm really looking forward to listening to some more. And thank you for letting me share.
Thanks,
thank you for your, and also thank you for your service.
Thank you. And the whole idea behind this really is, like I said, I've been still growing into this after 34 years. The whole idea I'm trying to put across, for me, this one sheet of paper really helped me visualize that these three entities are in play all the time. And it's always my choice about who I'm going to allow to predominate in myself, in my relationships with myself, or in my relationship with others. And if I'm not aware of that, then I'm just in reactivity mode, right? I'm just doing what I've always done because I learned that in my family. Jim, was there another question?
Yes, Karen C.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just was wondering if you'd be so gracious as to tell me if you'd be willing to share a copy of that somehow.
Oh, yeah, no, and that's what I was saying. Please don't worry about writing all this down, because I would much rather you listen and kind of get the concept of what I'm trying to put across. I've got 200 and some copies of this, and 200 and some copies of this little wallet or purse-sized card. And all you have to do is contact me on Slack or through the chair of HI. So it's HI, which stands for Hospitals and Institutions. HI. Well, Sharon, could you post that, please? Thank you. I just looked at the clock. We're running out of time. I really wanted to do more questions and answers.
We'll take one more from Yolanda then.
Absolutely.
Hi, thank you, Rich. I have a question about the kids will lie part. I don't understand this because I think is the kid not pure, and that the lying starts when the damaging is already present. For from parents who don't allow that the child can be the child. You understand me?
Absolutely. And you know, that was confusing for me too. And well, as an example, when I was a kid, I didn't want to go to school one day, and my mom always took my temperature to see if I was really sick. And I knew that if I put the thermometer up against a light bulb, it would get hot and would register as. So my mom put the thermometer in my mouth. I jumped out of bed, took it over to a lamp, put the thermometer up against the light. She walked in and saw me doing that. And she said, "Rich, what are you doing?" And I said, "I'm looking out the window." And she said, "Well, you've got the thermometer up against the light bulb." And I said, okay, I didn't know. Okay, I knew full well I was doing that. I lied because I got caught doing something that little kids do, right? I agree with you that a lot of times we lie because the damage has already been done. But even if that's the case, it's not my little kid's responsibility to stop lying. It's a healthy adult's responsibility to step up and make the relationship safe enough so the kid doesn't have to lie, right? And in that instance, my mom actually handled it fairly well. She said, "Well, you know, having the thermometer up against the light bulb will make it go up. So jump back in bed." And she retook my temperature, and I stayed home that day. That's all I remember. So I really do think that little kids, and maybe that's part of being perfectly imperfect. My little kid actually lied quite a bit. And whether it's the chicken or the egg, because I was in a dysfunctional family, or that's just what little kids do, I've seen some studies that I'm kind of convinced that little kids will stretch the truth because they really don't have that intellectual capacity of, they know what they want, they feel what they feel, and that's what's most important. And if I have to lie a little bit to get what I want, that's what little kids do. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, really. Anyway, any other, did that sort of answer?
Do you have time to go over the 4-part statements? Because we
we only have
absolutely 20 something minutes left.
I know it. We're way behind. Thank you. So the 4-part statement, and again, if you can, don't bother writing this out. I will send this to you. Now, a 4-part statement is it's just a continuation of what we used to call I feel statements. Okay. I feel statements, you know, I was doing them 30 years ago, but the old I feel statement was, for me, very confusing. And I really had an incredibly difficult time doing it. This one I find actually fairly easy once you get a little practice with it. Okay, a 4-part statement, and under the parentheses is always an I statement. It is always coming from I feel, I would want, I saw, I heard. It's always an I statement. If I start throwing yous, you slammed the door, it puts people on the defense, and it's really kind of invalidating to them in a lot of ways. Now, 4-part statements are good to use when I'm emotionally dysregulated. Jim, can you take this off, please? I'm going to.
You mean stop the share?
Yeah, stop the, yeah.
There was a question, is the 4-part statement for repair work or all communication?
No, this is the repair work. Great question. Thank you very much. And Jim, can you put me back on screen?
You should be.
No, I'm seeing you. I'm seeing Florida Zoom or Zoom to ACA. Oh, there we go. Thank you. So let me see if I can juggle this. So the first bullet point, good to use when I'm emotionally dysregulated. Okay. When am I emotionally dysregulated? When my little kid is having feelings that I am having difficulty with. I'm so angry. I'm so tired. I'm so lonely. I'm feeling so abandoned. When my little kid is in emotional overload, that is a great time for my healthy adult to recognize that, and instead of just having a temper tantrum on someone's head, my healthy adult loving parent says, you know what, we can do it different. We can do a 4-part statement, okay? Or when broaching a sensitive subject, if it's something I really am going to have difficulty talking about, a 4-part statement works great. The second bullet point, and I'm going to go over these because hopefully you're going to.
People really can't see this, so you probably.
Okay. Go ahead and put it up, Jim.
Probably
Thank you.
better off pointing to the screen.
Go
or
ahead. Put it up.
stuff on
Thank
the
you.
screen.
Yep. And I just saw one, can you give an example of a 4-part statement? I'm confused. I see that, Stephanie, and I will answer that in just 1 second. Let me go down through this real quick. Okay, so good to use when we're emotionally dysregulated or when broaching a sensitive topic. The next asterisk or the next bullet point, it's really important to ask the other person to listen. So if I'm going to give you a 4-part statement, it's important for me to ask you first, are you willing to listen? Because if I just dump a 4-part statement on you, that can feel very intrusive sometimes. So I need to create a sacred space where I've asked you, you've accepted, okay, we're going to sit down and do a 4-part statement. The third bullet point down the card, remember love. And this is either that you have love of self, that you are willing to act in a healthy way, behave in a healthy way, or that you love the other person enough to act in a healthy way, or both of them. You love yourself and you love the other person. Jim, can you flip it around to the other side? So that first side, the 4-part statement with the bullet points, those are things you need to think about and kind of set up. These are the actual action steps of a 4-part statement. So the first part of a 4-part are observable facts, what I saw, what I heard. Second part, what I made up about it. And this is the story my critical parent makes up due to my history. Remember, all our perceptions are different because of our history. So the second one is the story that I'm making up about what I saw, heard, felt. Third part, what I feel, that's pretty self-explanatory. I feel sad, I feel angry. Fourth part is really important, what I would like in the future, because this lets the other person know what would have worked instead of what might have happened. The last bullet point, let go of the results. I accept that I've acted and done what I can in a healthy way. Okay, now to get back to, I think it was, I forget who's, Jennifer's question, I think, about what does a 4-part statement look like? Okay, so say I'm married still and my wife comes in and slams the door. I have the feelings that I have when I hear a door slam, and I approach her and I say, so remember, I'm going from the bullet points. This is a sensitive topic for me. I'm emotionally dysregulated. I'm asking her if she's willing to listen. So I go up, Susan, do you have a couple minutes here? I need to give you a quick 4-part statement. She either says yes or no. If she says no, we set it up for whenever works for her. She says yes, okay? Now last bullet point on the other side, I'm remembering love. I remember that I love myself, I love her, I'm willing to do this in a healthy way. So Susan and I have sat down and I give her the number 1 observable facts. And when I do a 4-part statement, I actually tell them, so Susan, I'm giving you a 4-part statement. The first one is observable facts. Okay, so when you came home, the door slammed. Number 2, the story I'm making up about that is, I have told you before, see, I used a you right there. The story I'm making up about this is that I'm stumbling. The story I made up about this is that you previously have heard me talk about the door slamming can scare me. And my critical parent is making up that you're doing this on purpose. You're angry at me. You're trying to get back at me. My critical parent makes up all sorts of stuff. Third part, what I feel. I felt scared. I felt a little angry. Fourth part, what I would like in the future. I would like in the future that you remember that door slams scare me. Now, that last bullet point, I let go of the results. I have acceptance that I've acted in a healthy way, and I may not get what I wanted. She may still slam the door, okay? Now, I have not had this experience with this exact example, but I've had this experience on several occasions where this whole story that I just made up about Susan slammed the door on purpose. So I have the courage to give her a 4-part statement, and she says, oh, you know what, Rich, I was aware of that. The wind caught the door and slammed it, and I was aware when it happened, and I'm sorry. But now, if I had not had the courage to give her a 4-part statement, I would have just kept going, feeling angry, feeling scared, making up a story that she did it on purpose. So a part of what my experience has been in doing 4-part statements is that it really opens up healthy communication, which gets to a point I forgot to tell you earlier, and that is you don't do a 4-part statement to somebody at the grocery store. I do a 4-part statement to people that are really important in my life who know what a 4-part statement is. If I go up to somebody who doesn't have a clue about a 4-part statement and say, hey, I need to give you a 4-part statement, they're going to look at me like I'm nuts, right? So this is a healthy communication style that works in close relationships. It is part of the repair process. There's actually a 3-part statement, which is easier and quicker, but this is the main one for really getting used to it. The 3-part is basically, I feel, when, and what I want in the future. And that's more to be used in immediate things where, like, I'm in a conversation with Jim and our voices are starting to get elevated and I'm getting anxious. And I put my hand up and go, Jim, I'm sorry, I need to give you a 3-part statement. I feel scared when we raise our voices. What I'd like in the future is for us to talk without raising our voices. And so 3 parts are really good at intervening on a situation immediately, but I could not get there until I had practiced 4 parts, because what did I usually do? Something would happen, I would stuff it, I wouldn't talk about it for days, weeks, months, years, and when it finally couldn't carry it anymore, and I was tired of whacking and sacking them, I would be willing to do it a different way. And that's actually why we're doing these cards for billfolds for purses. What happened to me, I had a card like this in my billfold for 20 years probably. And I kept behaving and communicating. Uh-oh, my communication's unstable. Can you hear me okay, Jim?
Yeah, your video's a little shaky, but the audio's still coming through all right.
Okay. Tell me if it gets bad and I'll shut off the video. When I got so tired of communicating in unhealthy ways, I remembered, hey, I've got a 4-part card in my billfold, and I took it out and I started becoming willing to communicate in healthier ways. Okay, I've got some other stuff, but I went really long and I really don't know how that happened because I timed this to an hour earlier. But anyway, let's do some questions, Jim.
Okay, we had Faith before. I don't know if you're available to speak now, Faith. I'm gonna activate Linda.
Hi there. I had a question earlier. If you could talk about the worker bee. I wasn't sure what that meant. It was under the critical parent.
Yeah, so I don't know about you, but in my early recovery, well, first I thought it was the inner child that had to hit the road because that's the little guy that had all my feelings and they were uncomfortable. So I got to get rid of my little kid. And I realized that wasn't right. In fact, one thing I want to say is one of the things that I was taught for my healthy adult or loving parent, one of the best ways that I could get in touch with my inner child, I was told, ask him 100 times a day how he is feeling. And I never did it 100 times a day, but I did do that. I started just asking, what are you feeling? And for months, years, it was quiet. And pretty soon the little kid started to respond with feelings. And, you know, now I feel my inner child pretty much, he's there all the time because this is a dynamic that's working all the time. So getting to your question, so at first I thought to get rid of the inner child. Then I thought, no, the critical parent's the problem. I got to get rid of him. And now but because the critical parent is the worker bee in my spirit, I need my critical parent. Jim, can you take that off the screen and put me back on? So one of the things so here's a sheet and I taped it to a piece of cardboard so it wouldn't be flopping in the wind. So if you guys get one of these, you see the two arrows down here? So that's to remind us that, you know, my little kid, my critical parent, my healthy adult, they're always in operation all the time. And they zip back and forth as to who's in control so quickly that if I'm not aware of it, I'm on autopilot and probably being reactive. The arrows down here are to remind me. The arrows connect. And now we are doing conversations as an integrated whole, okay? We're not separate. We are doing, as Bob S. talks about, we're doing roundtable discussions. All three of us are there. My little kid is there with the feeling reality. My critical parent's there as the worker bee. Okay, how are we going to get to work this morning? And my healthy adult is giving, hopefully, guidance on principle-oriented kind of solutions for my life. Did that help at all? Your question on worker bee?
I'm sorry, Rich, we're on to the next question is Ingrid and Andy. Are you able to unmute Ingrid and Andy? Give you another second. We'll also check in on Grace. Are you available to share, Grace?
I am, yes. Thank you. Hello from Alaska. Two things I wanted to say. First of all, thank you for explaining that acronym BB, whatever it was. I can't remember. Because I think my most recent home meeting was a meeting with a lot of new people. And one of the things that I find that, especially a lot of new younger people, and I have this feeling myself in groups, is that when people start using acronym, it kind of is off-putting to people who feel like they're not in that loop. And even expressions like whack 'em and sack 'em or whatever, that like, I just wanted to say that I have a little bit of an aversion to that because it's sort of like insider language. So I appreciate it when you stop and explain that. And I also just wanted to ask, to me, saying, can I give you a 4-part statement feels very stilted. And I think that might be necessary as you begin, but do you have any thoughts on sort of like a more natural way to integrate that into a communication?
It is incredibly stilted. But that's part of the beauty of it, because when I'm emotionally dysregulated, my little kid is like, oh my God, or my critical parent is going, you are the problem and you did this and you did that. If I'm going to communicate from either of those points, it's going to go bad. I'm going to go, and we don't have time, but I'm going to go to one of those flawed communication styles. And doing a 4-part statement or a 3-part statement is incredibly stilted, but that's also part of the beauty of it, because it pulls me out of being a little kid, pulls me out of being a critical parent, and I have to become a healthy adult or loving parent to figure out those 4 parts to calm down enough to then actually present it to the person. So it's
Oh, that-
incredibly stilted at first, but with practice, it really, and especially in an intimate relationship, it's a game changer. Because if both people are practicing this, you both start to learn about each other, how I feel, when, what I want in the future. And the idea is, if you give me a 4-part statement, I can't come back to you and say, you know, that wasn't true. We both understand that your 4-part statement is sacred. My 4-part statement is sacred. But it's absolutely stilted when you first started. But it gets better.
That makes a whole lot of sense. That it's essentially, it's self-talk. I have a framework for this communication that I know is healthy and safe. And then that's what you go to.
And it's a great question, because for years I wouldn't do it. So for years I thought, what I believe now is honesty first, and then I learned how to be tactful. But I used to not be honest because I couldn't do it tactfully. And I wouldn't do these because it felt so stilted and uncomfortable that I'm not going to do this tactfully, and I don't want to do it, so I'm not going to do it, which is my little kid. It's too scary. It's uncomfortable. I'm not going to do it. And that's part of the beauty, like I said, is no, my healthy adult can step up. Even though I'm scared, I'm going to do it. So hopefully that makes sense on some level.
Yeah, that makes absolute sense. And also, you know, I actually thought as I was forming this question myself initially, well, maybe part of this is just we're not used to very direct, very safe and healthy communication modes, right? That's the discomfort that, and it is, yes, it's also still because it's not natural language, but I think that's part of the discomfort as well.
Yeah. And, you know, I never saw any modeling of healthy communication in my family, right? It was always drama. And this is not drama. This is shifting us on purpose away from that critical parent drama, away from the inner child emotional overload to a healthy adult. Okay, I can do this, you know, and I will do it. Anyway.
Okay, Rich, I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up this session. If you're willing to stick around for a few minutes, we still have some time in between the two sessions.
Sure.
So I'll leave that up to you. And but if you could read the last slide, and we need to get someone to read the promises.
Absolutely. 7th tradition states that every ACA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. We ask that you consider making a 7th tradition contribution at adultchildren.org, contribute, 7th tradition -contribute. The website details are being added to the chat box. WSO's official PayPal account at treasurer@adultchild.org, or via Venmo user account is at ACA WSO. Or purchase an MP3 at shopadultchildren.org. The next AWC session will be starting at 12 p.m. Eastern. San Francisco speaker meeting. There's the web channel. We hope you enjoy your virtual trip around the ACA world.
Yes, and I'm sorry, that's actually 12 a.m. It's in a half hour. A half hour is the San Francisco speaker meeting. And we'll see. Check in with Sharon. Are you there to read the promises for us?
Yes, as soon as I get candy out of my mouth. Okay, the promises, how I'm sharing adult child. The promises. 1, we will discover our real identities by loving and accepting ourselves. 2, our self-esteem will increase as we give ourselves approval on a daily basis. 3, fear of authority figures and the need to people please will leave us. 4, our ability to share intimacy will grow inside us. 5, as we face our abandonment issues, we will be attracted by strengths and become more tolerant of weaknesses. 6, we will enjoy feeling stable, peaceful, and financially secure. 7, we will learn how to play and have fun in our lives. 8, we will choose to love people who can love and be responsible for themselves. 9, Healthy boundaries and limits will become easier for us to set. 10. Fears of failure and success will leave us as we intuitively make healthier choices. 11. With help from our ACA support group, we will slowly release our dysfunctional behaviors. And 12. Gradually, with our higher power's help, we will learn to expect the best and get it.
Get it.
Thanks, Sharon. Thank you to everyone that shared today and was of service to make the global ACA World Convention come together.
We'll
I have
slip
asked-
right over to the last page here and go out.
So let's, with a moment of silence, we'll do the Serenity Prayer in whatever version or whatever language you care. Deep breath. God, grant me the serenity to accept the people I cannot change, the courage to change the one I can,
and the wisdom to know that one is me.
Thanks, everybody.
Excellent workshop. Thank you, Rich.
And thank you. Some of the chat messages are touching. Thank you. So
All right. So you're able to take a few more questions or comments, Rich?
Absolutely. Sure.
Okay. We had Gulsum had your hand up, and we have your microphone activated, Gulsum, if you're able to share. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. We'll move over to Crystal, and we'll come back to you, Gulsum, if you're there. Crystal, is it? Okay, we'll go. I'm going to clear all the.
Okay, I don't know if I can be heard. Maybe.
Yes, Crystal, we can hear you.
Yep, we hear you, Crystal. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I just wanted to. I wanted. It's a little bit confusing because the superego, at least in the original idea, was the part of the self that kind of absorbed criticisms from the family and the society, and you're supposed to be this way or not that way or whatever. So yeah, I had a little bit of a hard time because it didn't seem like the parts of the superego is actually kind of like a distorted part of the self when you're in ACA, because
Absolutely. And I agree with you completely. And I was going really fast, and the whole point of listing that was not that Freud's opinions of those three entities in our spirit were accurate. I think Freud's a nut. But the point was that lots of societies, people have thought that we have these three entities in our spirit, and that's the only reason I listed it. So I agree with you. The healthy adult and the superego are like total opposite, different, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess I was thinking about it. I mean, it's like the superego, at least in the original idea, is a sort of automatic part of the self that becomes oppressive if you had a really rotten childhood, and then, you know, you can't become a healthy person. But you know, maybe it could be like reparenting, sort of creating a more loving and nurturing superego. Anyway, that was just my feedback that I had. It's not.
And I agree with you. Yeah, thanks, Crystal. Anything else, Jim? Jim, you there?
Yes, I'm on mute. Amina, you there to share?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
I can.
Oh, okay. I was cooking. I kind of came in and caught the last end, but I caught it when you were saying the 4-point statement, and it sounded like I was making this person responsible for my feelings, and I've learned that my thinking is what causes my feelings. So could you tell me, am I a little, I know that the way I think is the way I act, that's true for me, but as far as the 4-point statement, am I making them responsible, or do I say this is because I kind of heard you say it was like perspectives too, because it's sacred. This is this is my perspective. This is your perspective. That's what I kind of picked up. That's what I heard. But I also thought I heard that I'm trying to make them responsible for my feelings. Did I hear that or not?
No, so when I do the action steps, I'm not trying to make them responsible. And, remember on this other side, I know you can't see it, but it's always an I statement. So when if I were to give you a 4-part statement, I would not just come up and go, Amina, I need to give you a 4-part statement. Here it is. You and I would already have previously conversed about this. Are you willing? So remember, you and I are in a relationship. Are you willing to do a 4-part statement? Am I willing to? We both willing to do this in our relationship. So you know that when I give you a 4-part statement, I'm going to say it from an I place. So what happened, what I saw, the door slammed. Story I made up about it was, oh my God, it's just like when I was a kid and my dad slammed the door when he was drunk. The 3rd part, what I feel, okay? The 4th part, what I would want in the future is, please be aware that door slamming scares me. Now, that's not, in my opinion, that's not making you responsible. That's my healthy adult taking responsibility for how I feel. And I know there's some other versions, NVC, nonviolent communication, that works. I find it very hard to actually implement. I think this is so much easier than NVC type communication. So I don't think it's blaming others for how we feel, but some people might, some people might. So I'm not sure if that answered your question. I agree with you in that some people probably would think I was blaming them. That's not my intent. And if we'd had the conversation previously so that you knew that when I do a 4-part, it's really about me taking responsibility for my feelings, which is my little kid, for what the critical parent is making up, and the fact that I'm willing to do a 4-part statement. My healthy adult is there and present with you. Did that kind of make sense?
Yeah, it does. But let me just say this, I think I kind of did it. This is how I said it to my husband, because we had got into something, and what it told me was that he was blaming me for something. And so that little girl didn't want to say it, because it was like I went back home. And you can't tell your parents that they wrong because you don't have a back, you got a gristle, that type of thing. So I had to sit there. And so I said, look, may I talk to you? I said, when you did this, I felt this. And when I felt this, a part of me that was trusting you left, and the other part that don't trust you came up. So is that kind of like the same thing what you're talking about?
Well, no, and please don't take this personal. The way I heard that was blaming him for how you felt, because, you were telling him how you felt, and then you were suggesting that he not do it. And that's one of the things about a 4-part. I'm never telling the other person, don't slam the door. What I'm saying is, I feel scared when the door slams, and what I would like in the future is for you to be aware that I'm scared when the door slams, right? So I'm never really confronting anybody about, don't slam that door again, Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, Amina, thank you.
All right, we're going to try to take one more from Poonam. Poonam, are you with us?
Yeah, hi. I'm calling in from India.
Wow.
My question is about the 4 entities, the 3 entities. What I find in my own experience is that there is the critical parent, but the response is from 2 entities. One is the compliant kid, and the other, a very strong one at the moment, is the one who is very narcissistic, and she's the one who's in charge. So I don't know whether in which of these entities she is there, but she's like I want it my way, entitled and critical. I don't know whether she's part of the critical parent, the narcissistic parent I've introjected, or it's the inner kid. It's very confusing and very uncomfortable, and yeah, I don't know whether I've explained myself.
You did, absolutely. Thank you. And that's one of the reasons why I like this very simple, the three entities of my spirit, because it to me, it very much makes sense. So I'm going to give you a different a different style. So I don't know if you've heard of what is it, IFS, Internal Family Systems, but
Yes.
Just read a book on that, and what they believe that there's 7 inner children, and they have a different name for it, and I think they're exiles, 7 exiles, and there's 7 of the critical parent versions, and they start describing how all of these different entities interact with each other, and for me it's just too confusing. With this one, it's like my little kid. So every time I'm in a feeling reality, I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling sad, you know, I know that's my little kid. If I am operating out of the laundry list traits or the 4 flawed modes of thinking, I know it's my critical parent. If I'm operating from the principles of the program, I'm operating from a healthy adult. So it really simplifies it for me. And, you know, I think it's like any new technique, it's going to take a little practice for it to feel comfortable. But I hear what you're saying. I have a friend who has like 10 little kids and 10 teenagers, and it sounds so confusing to me. I can't follow it. So, but I also believe whatever works, works. And if that works for you or for them, go for it, you know. And this is definitely one of those take what you need and leave the rest kind of presentations. If it doesn't work, that's great. But
No.
It helped me immensely.
Actually, I was just asking, now it's become clear to me that the key is that if I'm feeling whatever I'm feeling, whether it's anger or whatever, hatred, that is the inner kid. So it becomes simpler if I go by this model, by knowing that whatever I'm feeling is the inner child talking. Is that what you're saying?
That is what I'm saying. And for me, it works so well when I'm feeling something, my little kid is there. And for a long time, I was numb. So I really had to, like I said, I asked my little kid 100 times a day, what are you feeling? And over time, I really started to get in touch with, okay, that's what I'm feeling. Now I know what I'm feeling. So now I know when my little kid is in operating mode. Now I know when my critical parent is in operating mode because he's trying to blame you or somebody else or control or manipulate or black and white thinking. And now I've got a choice. I can either let my little kid have his way, let the critical parent have their way, or go to that healthy adult, communication, give somebody a 4-part statement, a 3-part statement, and really try to show up as a healthy adult and loving parent, not only to others, but to my little kid. My little kid does not like it when I am a critical parent and I'm blowing somebody out of the water. You know, my little kid, it scares him. So when my little kid sees, wow, Rich has a healthy adult who's showing up for this other person, giving very healthy communications, my little kid feels better. Does that make sense?
Sorry, Rich, we're out of time. We're out of time to wrap up.
Thanks, Jim.
Yep. Any final words before you sign off?
Nope. Thank you very much, everybody. It was an honor to do this. See you later. Thanks, Jim. Hope you get some sleep.
Thanks, Rich.
Thanks, Sharon. You're still there too. You guys get some sleep. You've been a long day.